A slave who cannot assume his own revolt does not deserve to be pitied. We must henceforth count on our own forces, on our own genius.
A country in Africa called Burkina Faso. For a long time, this country had a very big problem. It wasn't a war with guns and soldiers. It was a war against hunger. The leader of the country, a man named Captain Ibrahim Traore, saw this problem and decided to fight it in a new way. He said that the biggest weakness of Burkina Faso was not its army, but its land. The land was good, but there was not enough water. Rain did not fall regularly. Without water, you cannot grow food. When a country cannot grow its own food, it has to ask other countries for help. It has to buy food from them or ask for food donations. This is a big problem. When you need to ask others for food, you are not truly free. The countries that give you food can also tell you what to do. They have power over you. Captain Traore understood this very well. He said that a nation that can't feed itself is on a leash like a dog. It doesn't matter if your country has laws that say it is free. If you are hungry and need someone else to give you food, you are not really in control of your own life. So he decided to change this. He realized that the most powerful weapon for his country was not a gun, but water. If you can control water, you can grow food. And if you can grow your own food, you can control your own future. You could be truly independent. This idea was very different from what past leaders had done. For many years, leaders in Burkina Faso and other African countries have been told to follow the advice of powerful Western countries and organizations. They were told to take out big loans and hire foreign companies to build things. But often this did not solve the real problems. The projects were too expensive, took too long, and did not help the poorest people. Captain Traore saw that the true path to freedom was not in big meeting rooms in other countries. The path to freedom was in the fields of Burkina Faso. It was about digging channels to bring water to the dry land. This is called irrigation. Why start now? Captain Traore chose to start this fight for a very important reason. The weather in his part of Africa, called the Sahel, was getting worse. There were more and more droughts. A drought is a long time with no rain. Every year, Burkina Faso was getting closer to a major food crisis called a famine. The old way to deal with this was to ask for help from other countries. But Captain Traore wanted to break this cycle. He did not want his people to have to beg for food aid anymore. He decided to act, not just react. He knew that the longer he waited, the more his country would depend on others. The more dependent his country was, the more power other countries would have over it. This was a surprise to the rest of the world. They were used to African leaders asking for money and help. They were not used to a leader who said, "We will do this ourselves." By focusing on water, Captain Traore was not just starting a farming project. He was starting a resistance movement. It was a strategy to make sure Burkina Faso would never again have to kneel and ask for grain. He wanted to dismantle a system where other countries and big companies actually made money from the hunger of his people. Why is water so important? Because water is an equalizer. Water doesn't care if your country is rich or poor. It doesn't care about your country's politics. If you can build a system to capture water and direct it to your fields, you can change everything. You can turn a dry desert into a green farm. You can turn a poor village into a place with jobs and opportunities. But water cannot move by itself. It needs a path. It needs a channel to carry it across the land. This is where the next part of the story begins. Captain Traore didn't just want to have water. He wanted to control it, multiply its effect, and use it as a tool to help his people, a place of hope, the Balmer Plains. So, the government started a big project. They repaired and improved a dam called the Guider Dam. A dam is a big wall that holds back river water to create a large lake or reservoir. Now, they had a lot of stored water. The question was, where should this water go? Where should they build the first big irrigation canal? Captain Traore made a very specific choice. He chose a place called the Balmer Plains. The Balmer Plains was a place that was both a treasure and a curse. The soil there was very rich and good for farming, but it was also a place that suffered from terrible droughts. There was almost never enough water. Past governments had promised to help the people of Balmer, but they never did. The place was forgotten. It became a symbol of broken promises and lost potential. It represented what Burkina Faso could be, if only it could get the water it needed. So when the dam was ready and the water was there, Captain Traore sent the first flow of water toward Balmer. He did not choose Balmer because it was easy. He chose it because it was hard. He chose it because it was meaningful. He wanted to send a message. If he could make this dry, forgotten land green and productive, it would prove that anything was possible. It would show that even the most hopeless parts of the country could be brought back to life with vision and hard work. It was a way to resurrect the spirit of the nation. This was an act of defiance. This is how the Balmer Canal was born. It was not just a dream. It was a real project being carved into the earth. The canal is very long. The plan is to make it the longest irrigation canal in all of Africa. It will stretch across the land and bring water to thousands of acres of fields. The plan is to grow rice on 1,260 hectares. That's about 3,100 acres, and vegetables on 70 hectares, about 173 acres, and vegetables on 70 hectares, about 173 acres. And this is just the beginning. They're already planning to add more than 200 more hectares of farmland built by our own hands. What makes this canal project so special is not just the water, it is how it is being built. Usually for a big project like this in Africa, the government would hire a big company from another country, like from Europe, China, or America. These companies would bring their own engineers and managers. They would use their own machines. They would make a lot of money from the project. Captain Traore said no to this. He declared that the Balmer Canal would be built by the people of Burkina Faso. For the people of Burkina Faso, this is a revolutionary idea. It means the engineers are from Burkina Faso. The workers are from Burkina Faso. The sweat and hard work are local. The feeling of urgency is local. The pride is local. President Traore didn't just announce a project and hope it would get done someday. He put it on a timer. He gave a deadline. 8 months. This was a very, very fast timeline. Most projects funded by foreign aid can take 5, 10, or even more years to complete. They get stuck in paperwork, meetings, and delays. But Traore knew that hungry people cannot wait. A country fighting for its freedom cannot wait to meet this deadline. The project has been organized like a military operation. It is a controlled storm of activity. The work starts before the sun comes up. The cement mixers are always running. Workers stay late into the night, working under bright floodlights. Every part of the project is managed carefully to avoid delays. If there's a delay, it is treated like a failure for the whole nation. This is not just a construction project. It is an emergency mission to build independence. Think about what this means for the people. For the farmers in the Balmer region, this is more than just a canal. It is a story of hope and redemption. Many of these farmers had watched their parents and grandparents give up on this land. The rain stopped coming, and they could no longer grow enough to live. They had to leave their homes and move to the cities to find work. It was a sad story. Now with the canal bringing water, these same families are coming back. They are not coming back to ask for help. They are coming back to reclaim the land that was always theirs. The water is returning, and with it their dignity is returning. This canal is also very modern. It is not just a simple ditch dug in the ground. It is a high-tech system. It has pumps that are powered by the sun using solar panels. It has special valves to control the pressure of the water. Soon they will install smart monitors that use technology to make sure that not a single drop of water is wasted. This is very different from old irrigation projects that were often leaky and inefficient. The Balmer Canal is being built to last. It combines the old wisdom and resilience of the people with the best modern technology. And it's not just the canal itself. Other things are being built around it. They are building warehouses to store the food that will be grown. They are paving new roads to make it easier for farmers to take their crops to market. They are building water distribution centers exactly where they are needed most, not just in places where politicians want to show off. And every single part of this new system is designed to be owned and run by local people. The decisions will not be made in faraway capital cities or by foreigners in embassies. They will be made by the people of Bama. Captain Traore's vision does not stop at Bama. This canal is a test. It is the first one. If it works, and all the early signs show that it will be a big success, it will become a model. It will be a template that can be copied in other parts of Burkina Faso. It can be replicated in the north, the east, and everywhere else that needs water. It is a proof of concept. This means it proves that the idea works in reality. It shows that what is happening in Bama is not a one-time miracle. It is a strategy that can be used to make the whole country green and self-sufficient. But water alone is not enough for this whole system to work. It needs one more very important thing: people. It needs people to farm the land, to sell the crops, to build the new businesses, and to keep this transformation going. This leads us to the next part of the story: how this one canal is changing the entire economy of the nation and creating jobs for everyone. A new economy from hunger to power. When the water flows to the Balmer Canal, it does more than just make the ground wet. It starts a revolution. This revolution is not about concrete and steel. It's about calories control and confidence. This is where the story of Burkina Faso's transformation gets really interesting. It moves from being about building things to being about fighting hunger. President Traore knew from the beginning that the goal was never just about moving water from one place to another. The real goal was about what would grow next to the canal, and what would that growth free his nation from. For many, many years, the food system in Burkina Faso was like a hostage. The country depended on food aid from other countries and on buying food from the global market. This made it very weak. If there was a flood in India or a war in Europe, or if a country in Southeast Asia decided to stop selling its rice, it meant people in Burkina Faso could go hungry. The prices of food could suddenly go up, and people would not be able to afford it. Other countries could use food as a political weapon. They could threaten to stop sending food if Burkina Faso's government didn't do what they wanted. The fields in Burkina Faso were fertile, but they had been abandoned. So the country was not in control. Now, with the water from the Balmer Canal, those fields are coming back to life, and with the fields, power is coming back to Burkina Faso. The government estimates that the canal will help the country produce an extra 50,000 tons of food every year. This is a huge amount for a country that used to rely on imported rice, wheat, and vegetables just to survive. These are not just hopeful guesses. These numbers are based on real studies of the land, the types of crops being planted, and the expected harvests. But the biggest change is not about the number of tons of food. The biggest change is about control. Having food sovereignty means that you as a country get to decide what your people eat. You decide when they eat, how they eat, and how much it costs. It means you no longer have to bow down to big food companies in other countries. It means you don't have to panic when shipping routes get blocked. It means you don't have to accept emergency food shipments that arrive too late and cost 3 times the normal price. It means you can set your own prices for food. It means you can grow the foods that are part of your culture. And it means you can say no to food that is offered with conditions attached. This has led to a quiet but powerful change inside the government. The government is now treating farming not just as something poor people in the countryside do. They are treating it as a key part of national security. The government departments that used to only think about the army are now studying harvest times. The economists who used to only look at numbers like GDP are now thinking about how food exports can make the country richer. Farming is no longer just a way to survive. It has become a tool for liberation. This new strategy is also spreading power more evenly across the country. Before, farmers could only guess if they would have enough rain. Now, with a guaranteed supply of water from the canal, they can plan. They can invest in growing a second crop each year. They can rotate their crops to keep the soil healthy. They can work with local seed banks to grow different kinds of vegetables and grains. Small groups of farmers working together, called cooperatives, are becoming stronger. Women's farming groups, which were often given the worst land where it was hard to grow anything, now have access to good, fertile fields with reliable water. This is already changing the role of women in society and giving them more economic power. The local markets are also changing because there is now fresh food available all year round. The prices are starting to go down. This helps to fight food inflation, which is when the price of food keeps going up and up. Every time someone buys a kilogram of rice that was grown in Burkina Faso, the country takes one small step away from dependency. As the prices of food become more stable, families have more money left over. They can spend this money on other important things like sending their children to school, paying for health care, or starting small businesses. This creates a positive ripple effect that spreads far beyond the farms. What is even more amazing is President Traore's decision to use technology to help with this food revolution. The fields along the Balmer Canal are now being used as test sites for new technologies. They are using artificial intelligence, AI, to help manage the irrigation. They have sensor systems that monitor the health of the soil. They have drones that can check the health of the crops. These are tools that used to be only for giant billion-dollar farms in rich Western countries. Now these tools are being used in the countryside of Burkina Faso. With every piece of data from a sensor and every precisely controlled water pump, food production becomes more efficient. And with every increase in efficiency, the country's dependency on others becomes weaker. But this is where the story gets truly strategic. By growing more food and relying less on others, Burkina Faso is also changing its position in the world. A country that has plenty of food is a country with leverage. A country that controls its own food supply cannot be blackmailed with threats of cutting off grain shipments. It can negotiate with other countries as an equal partner. And as Burkina Faso starts to have enough food to sell to its neighbors, especially when those neighbors are having their own food crises because of droughts, it builds respect and influence. This is called soft power. It's a kind of power that you can't buy with money or win with an army. This is not charity. This is smart politics. It's about using onions and rice as tools of foreign policy instead of tanks and treaties. The canal may have started as a simple ditch in the ground in Bama, but what flows from it is political power, economic safety, and a real chance of true independence, a revolution of people and pride. Even with all the success in growing food and gaining political freedom, there's another deeper change happening. This change cannot be measured in tons of food or in economic numbers. You can see this change in the faces of the people. It's in the faces of people who now wake up in the morning not with worry and uncertainty, but with a purpose. They wake up to go to a job site, to learn a trade, to build a future. Because the next chapter in this incredible story is not about food at all. It's about the people who are building this new nation with their own two hands. It's about how this one canal is rebuilding the economy from the very bottom up. Growing enough food can fill a person's stomach, but having dignity fills a person's soul. As Burkina Faso begins to feed itself with the food from its new irrigation projects, another quieter revolution is happening. It is the rise of a homegrown workforce. It is the reawakening of the land, but also the reawakening of the spirit of a nation that was sidelined for too long in its own story. At the very center of this revolution is a simple but powerful idea that President Ibrahim Traore has made very clear. The people of Burkina Faso will build Burkina Faso. Not outside experts, not foreign engineers, not workers brought in from other countries, not deals signed in fancy hotels in faraway cities. The people of this country who for so long were just seen as people who needed help are now being given a new role. They are the builders. They are the operators. They are the owners of their nation's future. You can see this very clearly if you go to the Balmer Canal project. Around the loud machinery, the scaffolding and the field stained with wet cement. There's a buzz of activity. People from other countries might look at the project and be amazed by how big it is. But what they might miss is the most important part. the intense involvement of local people. This single project has already created over 2,000 direct jobs. Each one of those jobs is more than just a job. It is a salary for a family. It is a new skill learned. It is a story of a person getting their power and agency back. From the welders who are shaping the metal gates that will control the flow of water, to the civil engineers who are calculating the perfect slope for the canal walls, from the masons who are carefully stacking stones to build the embankments, to the technicians who are installing the solar-powered pumps, every single task is being done by the hands of the people of Burkina Faso. This is not just a construction site. It is a school. It is an incubator, a place where a new national workforce is being born and trained. This was not a guaranteed outcome. In fact, it is very unusual for most big infrastructure projects in Africa, especially projects involving dams or canals. The standard way of doing things is to outsource the work. The government hires a big foreign company to do everything, or they create a partnership with a foreign aid organization. In those cases, local people are usually only hired for simple low-paying jobs. The important skills, the engineering knowledge, and the profits all go back to the foreign country. President Traore completely rejected this model. He shredded that old playbook. Instead, his government worked to create a local supply chain from the very beginning. This means they are buying the materials like cement and steel from suppliers within the region. The tools and machinery are being made or repaired inside the country. Even the transportation and logistics, which are often controlled by big international companies, have been given to companies from Burkina Faso. By doing this, the money being spent on the canal does not leave the country. It flows back into the local economy. It helps steel workshops, cement factories, and transportation companies. It helps small farming cooperatives and local banks. So yes, it is a canal, but it is also like the circulatory system of the human body. It is a system that pumps work, income, and life throughout the entire nation. Beyond all the numbers and economics, there is something that is harder to measure, but is much more powerful: pride. If you talk to a 23-year-old welder working on the Balmer site, he won't talk to you about GDP numbers or hydrology models. He will tell you his personal story. He might tell you how he used to have to go to the capital city and beg for small jobs. He might tell you how his family lost everything they had during the years of drought. Now, he is earning enough money to send some back to his family in his home village. He is not just earning a salary. He is rebuilding trust in his own country. He is becoming the realest sense of the word a nation builder. For many of the people working on this project, this is the first time they have ever seen their government invest money in a way that helps them directly. It is the first time they have seen a project happen without a middleman, without endless bureaucracy, and without the money being stolen by corrupt officials. And that is incredibly important, because when a government delivers on its promises, when it gives people paychecks instead of just charity, it earns something much more valuable than good poll numbers. It earns the loyalty of its people. This loyalty is not a blind loyalty. However, it is based on results. And President Traore knows this. That is why the 8-month deadline for completing the canal was not just a political slogan. It was a statement of his belief in the skill, discipline, and power of his own people. It was a test. And so far, the workforce of Burkina Faso is passing that test with flying colors. Even the way people are being trained is changing. New vocational schools have opened up near the canal site. They offer quick courses and skills that are needed right now. How to maintain a canal, how to use solar irrigation technology, how to understand water hydraulics, and how to manage the business side of agriculture. These are not just temporary construction jobs. These are long-term career paths. They are turning a generation of young people who had no work into professional technicians and farm entrepreneurs. As more and more of these jobs are created, another important trend is changing. For years, young people have been leaving the rural villages to move to the big, overcrowded cities, or they have been taking dangerous journeys to cross borders into other countries looking for any kind of opportunity. Now they are staying. They are not staying because they have no other choice. They are staying because they see a future for themselves growing right there in their own land. They see a future that they are not just passively watching. It is a future they are actively building with their own hands. This is the ultimate revolution, a people empowered, a land reborn, and a nation finally truly standing on its own.